Hey Dewey, how you hanging?
It's who knows. I feel like I don't want to be too bubbly and over the top because it's not a bubbly moment. We just received order yesterday to stay at home, right? So we're now in Austin. We are a community that is you can't go out unless you got to use the grocery store or get medicine or the other kind of vital type things. So
Welcome to my world. We've been there a couple weeks now. Yeah,
how
it's
have you
it's
been
crazy.
managing it? Because it feels weird, even though it's not really very much different, right? It's for us. We've been going a little bit to tennis center, and then being here, and so not like we have a big social thing that we do most of the time, but it still feels kind of weird.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I feel like the longer we're in this state, the more normal obviously it becomes, right? It's our new normal as we say, and it really isn't feeling so restrictive anymore. It at first I was kind of like stressed over it and feeling very much like I was in like a police state kind of. And now it just kind of feels like this is what it is. We're here. We're thankfully my husband's here. We're together. Thankfully my kids are safe in their spaces. Two of my kids have dogs, so they have that companionship. My other one lives alone, but she seems to be figuring out how to stay connected with her peers. She's an actress and actually did an acting class virtually last night. And I
Oh,
did a book
cool.
club virtually last night, which was, you know, I mean, it's cool to see that we can do this stuff. And thankfully, this is happening in an age where we have the technology, right?
Yeah, so digging into some of those tools, you know, we're in the communications world, and we as a business, one of the things that my COO does is communications coaching and media training. And we were probably a decade ago trying to look at technologies which would enable us to perform that service for people remotely. But it wasn't quite there yet. So we were trying to piece together some things, and it doesn't work, but it really does just work right now. And everybody is finding that they are needing to use it to stay connected. This is really cool for me because it's a time that I'm connected to somebody outside, and I've been enjoying just hanging out with you and getting to know you
Yeah,
better.
me
And
too.
this has been, it's how we're all going to be connected, and we're going to get used to the tools. We're going to become more versed in it. Businesses might be looking and saying, wow, we've been fighting this and feeling like we needed to have people together in this bricks and mortar space and sitting in cubicles. And maybe those barriers are broken down now that they figure out, well, we had to figure out how to keep working. And maybe we have some flexibility where people only come in 1 or 2 days a week, and then they can work from home, kind of flex time, and deal with things, child being homesick from school, right? Kids are all home right now. But kids are
Yeah,
often home, and then it's like, well, you didn't come to work that day, and what tools do you have in place to be able to work?
right.
um, and I don't know, maybe we just
Yeah. So, I mean, interestingly, my husband's an attorney and he has a law firm, and they just moved into new space at the first of the year. And they built this gorgeous suite of offices. And I was in charge of decorating and, doing the furniture and the art and all of that. We had this big party to celebrate the opening of the new space. And now here we are, and almost everybody's working from home because thankfully they were forward thinking and put in technology to allow for that even before all of this craziness hit. But he does have staff members who are parents and their kids are at home, and so this allows them to be home and still be productive and still be doing the necessary work to care for their clients, because law firms are deemed essential businesses. And it's the new normal. But we had this whole conversation a couple days ago about, gosh, we just signed this lease on this new space and we spent all this money building this beautiful space. And, are we ever going to fully utilize it again? And hopefully the answer is yes. Hopefully, all of us are going to get back to business as usual once this whole thing is done, which who knows when that's going to be. But
How
yeah,
did tennis?
learning to go ahead. I was going to say, I was going to transition to tennis. And I think what's happening is the coaches and the players and the parents are all being pushed beyond their comfort zone, as the rest of us are as well, to figure out how to embrace this new normal and turn it into a business opportunity, or at least an income stream, so that we can all continue paying our bills and living our lives. And that's the biggest challenge right now. And I love what I'm seeing, especially with the professional tennis players who are kind of putting things out and offering themselves up in different ways so that they
Mm.
can maintain an income stream through all this.
I guess I tend to wonder how important is tennis, and it's been almost my everything for 30 plus years. It's how I made my living. It is because of that I met the person that I had my children with. It's been a great journey, met a lot of great people. But I hear people talking about, well, do we have to stop doing tennis lessons right now? And I wonder if we haven't placed too great of an importance on tennis. And if we haven't, as an industry, haven't figured out ways to support the tennis coaches to where when something like this happens, they're not reliant so much on their lessons and trying to figure out how to find a court someplace that's open. Uh, I had a
Right.
discussion this morning with someone up in the Dallas area, and what I he, person said to me was the local high schools and rec centers have actually taken down the nets um, at the tennis courts, that because there were so many people out on the court saying, well, here's a safe place, and because of the distance between people. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for tennis to market itself as a place where there is physical distancing on a regular
Right.
basis, right? Um,
Well, but the issue then becomes touching the balls, and when you're sweating and then touching the balls, and everybody's touching the balls, and then you accidentally touch your face. And I mean, there's so many things that we have to be careful of right now. And to me, I mean, it's interesting to see who is still out on the court, and it kind of boggles me, honestly. But yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, Dewey, I'm sure you did, but the USTA sent me a release that they have formed a task force alongside USPTA, PTR, ITA, and the racket sports. They've all formed a task force together to talk about just these kinds of issues and figure out what the different organizations can do, the governing bodies can do to support the coaches, support the players, support the tournament directors, support the fans of the sport, the manufacturers, all of these components that come into making tennis what it is. They This task force has been charged with coming up with some solutions, and they are actually taking suggestions through tomorrow. If people have ideas of what the industry can do to assist in all of these different areas, I want to just say go on parentingaces.com. We have opened up all of our content. Nothing requires a membership anymore. Everything's available to the public. I posted an article yesterday about this new task force with a link of where you can submit ideas. And I want to encourage people to really take advantage of this opportunity to speak out and share your knowledge, because one of the cool things I think about our sport is our fans, our players come from so many different backgrounds and industries, and this is a real opportunity to kind of utilize that range thinking that David Epstein wrote about recently, and think outside the box and bring ideas from other areas to help our sport and our industry continue to thrive.
It is a time of innovation. Um, I've had
Yeah.
several people talk to me about, the importance that for coaches to look at some of the innovative things that they're putting in place to make their businesses be more robust. So don't just think of it as we're trying to find ways to entertain kids during a couple of weeks span, but really dig into it and say, is there a way that we can fundamentally change the way that we operate to make it more effective, right? I think most coaches complain they don't get enough time with the kids to do all of the things that they would like to do. And so by finding ways to deliver programming to them when they have other free time that isn't at the tennis center, we might be able to do a better job over the long haul. And here's a chance to dig in. We're all sitting around and most of us are pretty bored and needing to find ways to entertain ourselves as tennis staff. I know that we got the stay-at-home order went into effect at the end of business last night. So we have a whole staff who is now, what am I going to do? Because until that point in time, we could do private lessons and we had protocols in place which made it absolutely safe. There was really no risk, but felt like, or I should say Jack felt like, it wasn't us. He tells us what the business will do, but he got input from us. And he decided, we need to follow the recommendations that come out from the people that spend all of their time talking to other really good people, and not, kind of look at it and say, well, we know better, so you can let's just keep doing what we want. So
Right.
we got a bunch of people sitting around right now trying to figure things out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm reading John O'Sullivan's new book. He's the head
No,
of
not
Changing the Game Project.
okay.
Sorry.
I
Um,
don't know of him.
oh, okay. Well, look up Changing the Game Project.
Okay.
He is all about giving youth sports back to the children. That is kind of his mission, and educating coaches and educating parents on what that looks like. And so I think this is a real opportunity for coaches to do a lot of self education as well. And as I'm reading this book, and I'm going to be interviewing John next week for my podcast, um, it's been very eye opening and thought provoking for me to read his thoughts on what effective coaching looks like, what effective sports parenting looks like, and what we need to be doing to help our children have more positive experiences in sport. And so for me personally, I feel like this is such a great chance for the tennis coaches out there to really not only educate themselves, but expand that educational opportunity and share what they're learning with the parents that they come in contact with, so that we all emerge from this on the same page about what our goals are in terms of helping our children reach their potential. And what does that mean? Not just helping them reach their potential as tennis players, but as human beings. And I think, you know, let's embrace this opportunity. Let's take advantage of the time that we now have to do that reading, to watch YouTube videos, to listen to podcasts, to interact with each other virtually, and come up with game plans that we can start implementing now and hopefully expand upon as we are released from our stay at home orders.
Yeah, I suspect many of us as coaches have not taken the time to continue to grow ourselves. There's not a mandate for it, and oftentimes we only do the things which we have to do because we're so busy doing the other things. Particularly, the coaches that are really good are really busy, and so they don't have a lot of free time, and their job is very physically demanding. So at the end of the day, the last thing they probably want to do is to sit down and study and to learn more. And here's a great opportunity to develop some skills which maybe you don't have and expand what you're capable of doing and what you bring to the table. Because we're going to come out into a different world, and maybe the guy down the road did spend the time to add some skills, and maybe he wasn't seen as the best one, and you were seen as the go-to guy, and now all of a sudden that other person brings something new, a couple of people kind of follow them, and then what I refer to as the lemmings kind of all follow along that path. But in this case, probably for good reason, because somebody took the time to invest in themselves, right? So I think many people have said the best investment you can make is in yourself, to train yourself. Your human capital is the absolute most valuable thing which you have. And here's an opportunity to increase its value. And why wouldn't someone do that?
Well, right. And especially in a service industry, as tennis coaching is, you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself as a coach. And I think it's the perfect opportunity for that. And, listen, we're all struggling with these kind of feelings of frustration, boredom, as you mentioned, fear. Um, there are a lot of valid emotions happening in people all over the world right now. We're all in this together, and we have to acknowledge that those feelings are there, and we have to first and foremost take care of our mental health and make sure that we are in a place mentally and emotionally to put ourselves in a position to learn new things. Because just saying that you should be reading, you should be interacting virtually, doing all these things is not going to cut it if you're paralyzed with fear of the unknown or anxiety, which I certainly have felt through all of this. I think I alluded to that last week, before my husband was able to get out to Southern California so that we could be together. I was a stress case, and I've had to stop watching the TV news. I can't handle the anxiety that it produces in me. There's too much information out there that's just being put out as a scare tactic, I think. And I am taking this very seriously, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to take my information from the medical community, not the political community. And I think it's really important to kind of filter what's coming in. But that aside, we have to manage those feelings. And for me, that means I get on my yoga mat every day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I take that time and get centered and focus on my breathing and my movement, and become very grateful and thankful for the fact that my body is able to function and move and do these different things that I do during my yoga practice, and I think for all of us, we've got to take that time each day to practice mindfulness, to practice gratitude, to practice compassion, and for ourselves. And only then are we able to put ourselves out there and start taking in new information, new knowledge, new ideas, so that we can grow.
I absolutely agree. And I, speaking as a parent who's not able to spend this time with my kids because they live in a different place.
Oh, I'm in your same boat. Yeah, mine are not here either.
But I encourage those who are still in this journey as tennis parents. So your kids are junior kids living in the home with you, to move towards that place of reconnection. You can maybe find out a little bit more about what your kids do every day. If you're helping them understand maybe some things that the coaches are sending along and asking them to do on a day-to-day basis, it gives you a chance to maybe have a little deeper understanding of what your child goes through on an everyday basis. And I encourage you to have them focus on the things that they can control. So look and develop a list and maybe think about the things that they want to do in the future. And, I can hit a forehand like Roger Federer, and then go about, well, how would I go about hitting a forehand like Roger Federer, and watch videos of Roger Federer and maybe shadow some things, and take those shadow swings. And it's talking to the people at Tennis Locker today, and they have an analysis tool where you could take the Roger Federer and you could take your own child and you could put them in, and you can kind of look at them side by side and make little tweaks to what the swing is, and before you know it, kids hitting forehand like Roger Federer. That's one of those things that they can control, and really
Yeah, and there's nothing to stop you from hitting against a brick wall, right?
Yep.
Wash your hands after, because who knows who's touched the brick wall if it's not at your own residence. But there's no reason that these kids can't get outside and hit against a wall. But there are so many concrete things that, as you're saying, Dewey, watching video, using the analysis tools that are already available to get better each day. And it's all about the small improvements, right? The
Yep.
1% per day, right? That whole idea. And I know you subscribe to that way of thinking when you're training kids. So there's no
Totally.
reason they can't keep doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to share a real quick short story, and we've run over our time a little bit, so we probably can't chat too
Always.
much more, right? um, I lived for 8 years in Charlotte, North Carolina. One of the major pros in Charlotte was a guy by the name of Tim Wilkison, and nicknamed Dr. Dirt. I think Tim got to 11 in the world. But Tim was a local guy, grew up in Shelby, North Carolina, and there is a famous story that Tim every day would go hit on the wall before school. And I believe this to be true because he would come out to the park and hit on the wall, and he would practice volleys on days that it was raining so the ball would never hit the ground. But Tim would do this religiously, day after day after day after day, to the point where the people in the neighborhood no longer set their alarm clocks because Tim was going to wake them up with this bang against the backboard. And then one day, Tim got sick and didn't show up to hit against the wall, and the entire neighborhood was late for work. So,
I love it.
um, so
So
it
who
worked.
says tennis doesn't make a difference? There you go.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, I feel better for this conversation, Lisa. I'm actually smiling right now. And when we came on, I was very dour and feeling a little bit down. And thank you for cheering me up. And I hope that we did the same for some other people today.
Me too. And those of you watching, please, please, please practice social distancing. Wash your hands. Stay away. Don't take non essential trips outside your home. Even if your community hasn't issued a stay at home order, stay at home. Just do it. Let's all get through this. Let's all stay well. And Dewey, thank you for providing this platform for us to have these conversations each week. I really value our time together too.
We'll do it again next week. Until then, Tennis Takeaways with Lisa and Dewey. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you soon.